Supergirl. What went wrong? Honestly, I've been thinking about making this video, especially because I did one on Arrow and Flash. Supergirl is an interesting one because I feel like this show went wrong practically from the start. In the very first episode, hell, when they showed the trailer for this show of what this series would be like, I remember seeing Kara as an assistant and her being clumsy, her bumbling and stumbling around, and her struggling to be someone in the city, and then she becomes a superhero. And that alone, I thought was laughable, not just for the over-the-top, cliched moments, but because literally 1 week earlier, Saturday Night Live did a sketch with Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, as like a what if Black Widow got her own movie, what would it be like? And this was it. The sketch was that Black Widow, Natasha, would be a clumsy assistant, and it was just very goofy, very over the top, and purposely bad. So to see a show doing this same exact story, but actually taking it seriously, was not just laughable, but extremely bad timing, and I immediately lost interest in the level of writing on the show. But look, I liked Melissa Benoist. I liked her as an actress. I liked her Kara character. I was willing to go along with her and to see if maybe somehow, some way the show got better. Look, I give a lot more credit and a lot more leniency to a superhero property, to a superhero comic book show. That's why I kept watching, and that's why I keep watching a lot of these shows, even when they're bad. Season 1, I think, had a lot of other issues as well. Her boss is Cat Grant, and she was a bitch from the start. I remember hating the holy hell out of Cat Grant. She just was annoying. She was grating. Her constant snapping at Kara, saying her name wrong as Kira, and just it was so cliched. This overbearing boss that wasn't understanding and just expected too much of her, was willing to fire her almost in every other episode. They did this for so long, and sure, yeah, eventually I started to like her. Eventually they started to give her humanity and make her likable, but it just, by the time we got there, by the time I started to like her, Clarissa Farquhar left the show. So, well, there you go. And it, every single time that Kat interacted with Kara, and then in the next scene interacted with Supergirl, I never bought how nobody ever figured out that they're one and the same. I know they did episodes where people did suspect. I know they did moments where they wrote out a way to prove that Kara wasn't Supergirl. I know, but just, it's so painfully obvious. The same goes for Superman. They do the same thing for Superman. So I guess why not do the same thing for Kara? So after Cat Grant left, in season 2, they introduced a new boss who was even more of a dick. I swear, this guy was just such an asshole to Kara, really for no reason. Every time she tried to challenge him on a story, or she was dedicated and believed in a story that she wanted to tell, he just kept going over her, or just kept contradicting her, and just constantly go, oh, I know he was doing it to toughen her up. It was tough love. It was for her to learn and grow. Again, cliched enough? Anyone? And then by the time he too came around and started to like her, we haven't seen this MFer ever since. So that all feels like a waste of time. James Olsen. Look, Jimmy Olsen is a character from not only the comic books, but the original Christopher Reeve movies. You think of Jimmy Olsen as this nerdy, skinny white kid. So this show decided to not just make him not Jimmy Olsen anymore. No, he has to be sophisticated. He has to be his own man. He's James Olsen. That's how we take him seriously, see? but you cast a big, tall, good-looking black guy as James Olsen. And I'm not trying to be one of those guys who say you can't change the race of a character from the comic books. I'm not saying that. It has been done, and I have liked it. But I feel like they so drastically changed Jimmy Olsen as a character. Like, he doesn't even resemble Jimmy Olsen, not just because of his race. I mean, as far as qualities in his character and personality, if he had been a black guy but still been the nerdy, goofy, yet charming and still likable, so you could buy Kara being interested in him, I would be okay with that. But he's such a smooth, suave, overly good-looking like guy. It's just, all right, just give him a different name. Did he really have to be James Olsen? Did he really have to have the Olsen connection with Superman? What was the point of all that? And we kept going back and forth for so long with him as the love interest, him and Kara liking each other, but he was dating Lucy Lane or she was dating somebody else, and it was never at the right time. Oh, this soap opera stuff. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. I know the show started off on CBS. I don't know if that's the reason why there was so much lovey drama, soap opera stuff going on, but yet once they went over to the CW, they never stopped. They kept going with shit like this. James has since gone on to become his own vigilante, because of course everyone on these damn shows becomes a vigilante. He became the Guardian, which might have started out interesting, but because he's on a show with an overly superpowered character, he felt like a useless superhero, if I'm being honest. And then there came a point where they even stopped him being a superhero. He just kind of stopped randomly, abruptly, out of nowhere. Win was a character who started off as yet another guy that liked Kara. That's what we needed. We needed more male characters who liked our lead female. It just, he always struck me as the best friend that was never going to have a shot with her, and just seemed very pointless to sit here and watch him pine over her and seeing how desperate it was. Also, because she immediately clued him in and let him know her secret. She also let James Olsen know the secret too, like in the same episode, and it was like, well, I guess we're done with secret identities. All these characters knew. I know Wynn was there to help make her costume and help be her guy in a chair. He eventually did become the guy in a chair, which is a huge problem with the CW shows. Every single one of them has a guy in a chair. Even Black Lightning does. And I remember there was one crossover in particular where you saw the whole cast of Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl, and they had all three shows, guys in the chair, girl if you count Felicity, where they're all together and they all are written the same, they all act the same, they all make the same movie jokes. It's just, they're all archetypes, and the same archetypes that they couldn't even deny or pull away from when they were all in the same room together. I think Wynn became much more interesting when they got away from him liking Kara, when they got away from all that stuff, and it was revealed that his father was the Toy Master, he was a villain, and it was him dealing with that, and then him going off with his own side plots and his own stories. That's when I started to like him. That's when I started to want to watch him more. And then he leaves the show. Great. He's been replaced seemingly by Brainiac, who I've never gotten into this character. I've never cared about this character. They tried to have him be the comic relief and be somebody that Wynn was, but it's never worked for me. Monel. Speaking of love interest, yet another love interest, this time in season 2. Monel was a guy who he is an alien. He does have Kryptonian-like powers, but he's not Kryptonian. He instantly has an attraction for Kara, and they go through this whole back and forth of them liking each other, but they don't date, and then they finally do date, and then she trains him to be a superhero, teaches him how to be a superhero, and then he doesn't know if he could do it, and then they date, and then they break up because his mother doesn't want him dating her. Then they get back together, then they get separated, and you see future Monel show back up in season 3, where he spent so much time apart from her, and he's in a new relationship with somebody else, but he still likes her, and he wants to be with her. Holy crap! How can you seriously think that people want to see this? I mean, look, I'll be honest. I've seen comments online from fans of the show, from people who loved the Monel Kara relationship. I've seen it. I've seen them write how much they want him to come back, how much they want these two to get together, stay together. Maybe they're just young teenage girls who were really into this whole idea. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that makes more sense. But honestly, I thought this whole relationship was so overdramatic, so over the top, so annoying and grating to watch, and made both of them look unlikable, made both of them look like unsympathetic, just immature, spoiled brats. And I was so glad to see him written off of the show. And Alex, I should probably mention Alex because she is Kara's human sister, adopted sister, but they do feel like actual sisters. You see them, especially the earlier seasons, you see that bond there. You see them always leaning on each other, being there for each other, even in the moments in Kara's apartment, and they're watching movies and eating food, and they're always talking about their problems and blah, blah, blah. Alex had this whole plot of coming out of the closet where she realizes she was gay, and that was a huge moment for her, and that was probably the most I liked Alex at that point. She starts a relationship with this character Maggie Sawyer, who I thought I would like. I thought I would like this relationship, but man, did this go south quick. And they made Maggie unlikable. She did some things that just seemed really unforgivable, and just never quite understood where she was coming from in this relationship, and did not do the actress much favor. The way how the couple broke up was so out of left field, and so just like, hey, we're going to move in together, we're going to get engaged, we're going to have a family. Nope, never mind, I'm gone. And so Alex was left alone, and she was very upset and depressed, and we had to sit through her being upset for God knows how long. You see so many moments of her force fighting with Kara, and just every time they do that, every time they have a character who's close with Kara, especially Alex, and they force these arguments, they force this drama, force these secrets, force these moments that just make you roll your eyes and go, all you guys have to do is talk to each other. All you guys have to do is be adults. And all of this would be avoided. And this has happened so many times with Alex that at this point, whenever Alex shows up, I kind of roll my eyes and go, all right, here we go. Here comes the biggest drama that we're going to see of the episode. Some of the villains. Let's go through the villains. Season 1, we had Astra, who was Kara's aunt. And I like this because this was somebody that was close to her past. You see even the relationship with the mother. Just all of this made sense for somebody that Kara had to be conflicted about, had to try to maybe talk down, but it never quite worked out until Astra was randomly killed off by Alex. And when I say random, I'm not talking about the season 1 finale. I'm not talking about really any finale. This was just a random episode in the middle of season 1. Apparently the actress had to leave the show for whatever reason, but it just recast, because you did such a disservice to this character. You did such a disservice to the main villain of the season, that the season suffered so much, because then her husband, Non, became the main villain to get revenge for her death. And I never gave a fuck, never cared about Non as a villain. I know he's the same Non from Superman 1 and 2, but still, who gives a shit? And season 2, Rhea, Monel's mom, that was, I mean, I know it was Terry Hatcher, and she has a Superman connection, Lois and Clark and whatnot, but I never cared about her as a villain either. It just was more force-fed drama for Monel, just a reason for them to break up and blah, blah, blah. Lena Luthor's mom was also a big villain in season 3, and I should mention Lena Luthor. Lena Luthor, when she first was introduced, I thought, here we go. just because Supergirl is Supergirl, we have to introduce all of these female versions of Superman's villains. And I thought Lena would just be a female Lex Luthor, a businesswoman who was one way in the public, but behind the scenes, she was a villain and she would go after Supergirl. And I just thought this was going to be horrible, going to be terrible. Until you see that Lena wasn't a villain, that she was misunderstood, that she was abused by her mom, and that she did have more dimensions to her. She does become friends with Kara. She does respect Supergirl. And I thought, wow, we are taking a great direction for this character. I like the actress until they started to tease her as a villain. And I know they did it a couple times simply because she was a Luthor, and they thought, hey, they played with does her upbringing have to mean she's destined to be a villain? But then they subverted that. Then they revealed that no, she won't be a villain. Until recently, when they teased her being a villain again. And she disagrees with Supergirl. They have this big falling out. So now she doesn't trust her. And now they have all these awkward, intense scenes with each other. And I hate the fact that they're even thinking about making Lena a villain. And all the signs point to it. She's doing some underhanded things, especially how her relationship with James Olsen fell apart. Yes, they had these two characters date. Why? Because they weren't doing anything else in the show. So let's just put them together. Lena, if they make her a villain, if that is where they're headed, and it's such a waste of a character, it's such a half-assed, lazy way to create a villain that's supposed to have this emotional impact, but it's really going to feel forced. It's really going to feel annoying. It's just repeating and redoing what Smallville pulled off and did so well, but that at least makes sense. That at least had a long build-up as well. Rain was a villain in season 3. She was an alien, not Kryptonian, but had Kryptonian-like powers. It provided for some good action scenes with her, especially in the first fight where she absolutely destroys Supergirl, throws her off of the roof, and just embarrasses her in front of the whole city. And that's when I thought, wow, all right, we have a great villain. We have something interesting here. Until she became cliched as well. You saw that she had a split personality, and the Sam character, and her daughter Ruby, and how annoying she was, and how much I didn't care about either one of them. And then you had to have this whole trying to save Sam and trying to get her out of Rain's body. And then you found out that Rain was just working for another Kryptonian that nobody knew about and nobody cared about. And they played her up as like the Empress Palpatine almost of the show. It just was so goofy by the end of it. It lost a lot of its luster, a lot of me caring and giving a shit. Speaking of Kryptonians in season 3, we found out that Kara's mother is still alive. So all of these Kryptonians, I guess, survived Krypton blowing up and survived that big mass destruction, and somehow wound up on an abandoned planet where they've been hiding out and living out for years, decades. And you see a new actress playing her mom, because previously there was a hologram that showed her mom and blah, blah, blah. Now she's played by Erica Durant, who played Lois Lane on Smallville. Now this is cool. This is good for that. The show always does a good job with bringing back other actors and actresses that were involved in Superman stuff before. But Erica Durant in real life is only 10 years older than Melissa Benoist. That's quite disconcerting that you have this actress, because she's just a little older, she has to play the mom. It's just like, really? That's what you have her do? And then, okay, fine, if you're going to do that, at least you'd think it'd be a pretty prominent role, a big role. But she hasn't been seen since. She showed up for a couple episodes. Hey, honey, I'm alive. I'm home. And then gone. Done. Never to be seen or heard from again. Season 4 currently, we have Agent Liberty, who honestly they've portrayed as somebody that I kind of understand. I'm not saying he's 100% right. I'm not saying that everything he's done has been moral and ethical, because it hasn't. He has done some bad things to aliens and whatnot. And I know that some people are upset of how political this show has gotten in some ways, not just with this character, but with them having a transgender character this season as well. I'm okay with all of this. I am. I do think that it makes the show different, and it's doing things that most, especially superhero shows, haven't done before. But it does become an issue. It does get a little tricky when you have a character, a villain like Agent Liberty, and you portray him in such a way where he doesn't look 100% wrong, where he does have motivations for what he's doing, and it almost makes your heroes look like assholes. They have moments where they could have saved people, or they could have intervened and done things that wouldn't have set this character on this path. But because they did what they did, he is a villain now, and I actually do feel somewhat bad for him. So what are we supposed to do here? How am I supposed to feel about that? Also, Manchester Black, who I know in the comics is an actual villain. So, yeah, fine, he's supposed to be a villain. But the actor that they cast for him is so likable and so good that I'm upset that they're sticking with the whole villain angle. I would have appreciated if they had maybe done a twist, done something different, and maybe made this guy, even if it was a vigilante type or somebody that went off and did his own thing, had his own agenda. I like this actor, and I like the character itself, and his own motivations is understandable too. He just wants revenge for his girlfriend and how she was murdered and how he doesn't feel like anyone else is doing anything about it. I'm like, yeah, dude, fight for her. But yet the show makes it seem like he's going too far and he's a villain now and blah, blah, blah. Martian Mantunder is a character that I was ecstatic to see them introduced on this show. I love John Jones. I love this actor playing him and how they've really done a good job doing it justice. Every episode that's dedicated to Martian Manhunter and his backstory and what happened with his family and his kids being wiped out, like that is sad, that is brutal, that holds a real emotional weight. And in fact, they don't do enough with this character. I like how he's almost a father figure to both Kara and Alex. Just, they do a lot of good stuff with him. And my biggest complaint about him is that they just don't use him enough, especially lately. And maybe the CGI at times don't look great, but it is a TV budget. I'm trying not to be so attackative about that. Livewire was a villain that was introduced early on, and I liked her. I liked the actress, and I liked the look of her. I liked how her powers looked, and Livewire was from the animated series, so it was very cool to see her in live action. And I even liked that they started to give her an arc where every time she came back and she was caught, and then she learned that maybe being a villain wasn't great, and she ended up turning good. But every time they do this with a villain, where the villain becomes good, they kill the villain off. It's like you want these villains to hopefully eventually realize that they were wrong, realize that there's more good to do out there, or maybe that they don't have to be bad. But if you have them realize this and then get killed, well, what's the point? They realize that they were wrong and that it is okay to be good. Only being good gets you killed. Speaking of them bringing back other Superman actors and reworking them into this show, Dean Cain was cast as Kara's adopted father, human father, and I like Dean Cain. I liked him as this role. I like the reveal that their father wasn't really dead, because that's what they initially thought early on. But then he too disappeared. He too had this whole thing where he was forced to work for this facility, Lena Luthor's mother. And he fought his way out. He was able to help Kara, and he was able to do some stuff, but he too has been gone for the longest time that I don't even remember where he went or what the explanation is for why he's not around anymore. That's a huge complaint, is that this show will have these characters, introduce these plot lines and introduce these things, and then just they disappear. And then they just drop, never to be seen from or heard from again. And if they ever do show up, I'll forget what they did last and what the impact of their return will be. Last but not least, Superman. Superman, like season 1, when they had Superman's mentioning and Clark Kent's mentioning, it was so lazy, so half-assed with how he was only mentioned from afar. They had Kara texting Clark and IMing him, and so we never had an actor, or we never had them on the phone or a voice, or it created some awkward moments, some awkward conversations, and just constant conversations of where the hell is Superman? Where the hell is Clark Kent? Without a good explanation for it. I know it's a Supergirl show, and I know you want her to be the hero and her to do her own thing, but I shouldn't be asking these questions either. I remember in the finale of season 1 where people in Metropolis were being mind controlled, and when Superman was coming in to save the day, he immediately gets hypnotized and just joins the crowd of zombies. And you're like, what the hell? Really? Superman's that easily taken over and controlled, and just pathetic. Season 2, though, they finally did cast an actor as Superman, Tyler Hoechlin, who I really enjoyed. I thought he had that Christopher Reeve-esque to him, that classic Superman that we're longing for in the movies, and I liked him. The problem was that he showed up a couple times and then disappeared, and they always have to do this. Look, I know it's hard, especially when you're trying to focus a show on your hero and not have anyone think of Superman or want to think about Superman, but I always felt like they needed better explanations, better reasons for why Superman isn't there, not just, oh yeah, he's busy. Oh yeah, he left the planet. Really? Oh, okay, thanks. And he went a whole season of like season 3. I don't think he ever showed up. He came back in season 4 for the big crossover episode, and they seem like they're going away from Superman, though. I don't know if there's other plans with this crisis on different Earths. And I know some people were upset in season 2 when Supergirl had that fight with Superman and she beat him one-on-one, but I was okay with that. I just wish that they had either better use of Superman, better things for him to do when he's there, or just a better explanation for why he isn't there, or why Supergirl doesn't ever ask for his help if she does need it. So guys, this show has had a lot of issues, major issues. I'm not saying that it's the worst of the CW shows, because it's not. It's had moments, it's had episodes, it's had character arcs, it's had even things that I've liked and appreciated about it, but it needs some work. It needs some work hard. This writing is brutal. These characters are brutal. Just the soap opera stuff needs to go away ASAP. So guys, let me know in the comments below, where do you think Supergirl went wrong? Did you check out early? Are you still watching it? What would you do to make this different, to make it better? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!